Look up at the night sky. For thousands of years, human beings have done exactly that. Long before telescopes, before mathematics, before laboratories and satellites, there was only the silent canopy of stars. Ancient shepherds, kings, fishermen and wanderers all stood beneath the same vast expanse and asked the same question that still echoes today. Is any of this an accident? Modern culture often tells us that the universe is the result of chance. That matter collided, expanded, cooled, and eventually produced galaxies, stars, planets, oceans, life, and consciousness. According to this view, we are the outcome of an unimaginably long chain of fortunate coincidences. But there is another way of looking at reality, a much older way, a way that does not begin with randomness, but with intention. The ancient biblical worldview did not see the cosmos as chaotic. It saw it as ordered, meaningful, and sustained by purpose. In the opening lines of Genesis, the universe is not described as emerging from confusion, but as being spoken into existence. Light appears. Boundaries are established. Time is structured into cycles. Waters are separated. Land emerges. The heavens are arranged. This is not the language of accident, it is the language of design. And whether one approaches the text from faith, philosophy, or historical curiosity, one cannot ignore the striking claim embedded in that ancient narrative. The structure of reality is not random, it is deliberate. Today, science maps cosmic background radiation. It measures gravitational constants with extraordinary precision. It observes mathematical laws operating identically across billions of light years. But long before equations described these consistencies, Scripture declared that creation operates through order because it reflects a sustaining will. The biblical writers did not imagine a universe abandoned after its beginning. They described a cosmos continuously upheld. The stars remain because they are maintained. The rhythms of nature persist because they are governed. This perspective is radically different from the modern assumption that meaning is something humans must invent for themselves. In the biblical view, meaning is already woven into existence. Consider how ancient people measured time. They did not begin with clocks, they began with cycles, morning and evening, seasons, harvest and rest. These rhythms were not merely practical observations, they were seen as signs of reliability, signs that the universe behaves faithfully. Psalm 19 expresses this idea with poetic force, saying that the heavens declare knowledge without speech. Day after day pours forth testimony. This is a universe that communicates through consistency. In contrast, a purely accidental cosmos would not be expected to produce stable laws at all. Randomness does not naturally generate enduring structure. Yet everywhere we look, from atomic behavior to galactic motion, we encounter patterns that can be trusted. Even the ability to do science depends on this reliability. Experiments assume that tomorrow will behave like today. Mathematics assumes the universe is intelligible. Observation assumes coherence. The ancient biblical perspective would say that this trust is not misplaced. It is the natural result of a creation that is not self-originating. The idea is not that the world is magical or unpredictable, quite the opposite. The world is dependable because it is governed. This raises a profound question. If the universe were truly the result of blind forces, why would it be so remarkably comprehensible? Why would human minds be capable of understanding structures that extend far beyond survival needs? Why should equations written on paper describe the birth of stars? Why should abstract mathematics map onto physical reality at all? The biblical tradition answers not by pointing to chance, but by pointing to correspondence. Humanity can understand the universe because both originate from the same source. The world is rational because it was formed through wisdom. Proverbs speaks of creation being established through understanding. Not through conflict, not through randomness, through wisdom. This is an astonishing claim for an ancient text. It suggests that intelligence is not a late byproduct of matter. Intelligence is prior to matter. In such a worldview, the cosmos is not a cold machine. It is a structured environment in which life is meant to exist and flourish. And this brings us to something often overlooked. The biblical authors were not trying to answer modern scientific questions. They were addressing a deeper issue, whether reality itself has meaning. Their answer was unambiguous. The universe is not self-explanatory. It is contingent, dependent, sustained, and therefore nothing in it is truly accidental. This does not deny processes, development, or complexity. It denies that these processes are ultimate. Behind them lies intention. To the ancient mind, the rising sun was not merely a fusion reaction. It was a sign of continuity, a reminder that the world is upheld day by day. In our time, we may describe the mechanisms differently. We speak of gravity, nuclear forces, expansion rates, and quantum behavior. But the deeper question remains untouched by terminology. Why does anything exist in an ordered way at all? The biblical worldview invites us to see the cosmos not as a fortunate anomaly, but as a sustained reality, not as a meaningless vastness, but as a structured creation. And once that possibility is considered, the stars no longer appear silent, they appear intentional. If we step away from assumptions and simply observe the universe as it presents itself, something unusual becomes clear. The cosmos does not behave like chaos. It behaves like a system that can be trusted. Every scientific discipline depends on this trust. Physics assumes constants remain constant. Chemistry assumes reactions will repeat under the same conditions. Astronomy assumes that light traveling across billions of years will still obey the same principles when it reaches us. Without this reliability, knowledge itself would collapse. There would be no predictions, no technology, no understanding, only unpredictability. Yet the universe does not dissolve into unpredictability. It follows laws so stable that they can be written down, studied, and used across generations. This is not merely a scientific observation, it is a philosophical one. Why should a universe exist that can be understood? Ancient biblical thought approached this question differently than modern speculation. It did not begin with matter, it began with order. In Genesis, creation unfolds through separation and distinction. Light is distinguished from darkness. Waters above are distinguished from waters below. Land is distinguished from sea. Time is distinguished into measurable sequences. The text describes reality as structured into categories that make life possible. This structure is what allows existence to be livable, predictable, and meaningful. The ancient writers were not presenting a laboratory explanation. They were expressing a foundational idea. The world functions because it was established with boundaries. This concept appears repeatedly throughout Scripture. The sea is given limits it cannot cross. The seasons follow appointed times. The stars are described as set in their courses. These are not poetic exaggerations. They reflect an understanding that nature is governed rather than self-directing. In contrast, a purely accidental universe would not be expected to produce such remarkable equilibrium. Even small variations in physical conditions could render existence impossible. If gravity were slightly stronger, stars would burn too quickly. If slightly weaker, they might never form. If fundamental forces differed even marginally, matter itself might not hold together. Modern discussions sometimes call this the fine-tuning problem. Ancient texts did not use that language, but they expressed the same intuition. The world appears prepared. Isaiah speaks of the earth being formed not as emptiness, but to be inhabited. That phrase carries enormous weight. It suggests suitability rather than coincidence. The biblical worldview sees creation as an environment arranged for life, not life struggling to appear in spite of reality. This is a reversal of the modern narrative. Instead of life adapting to a meaningless universe, the universe itself is seen as accommodating life. Such a perspective changes how one interprets natural law. Laws are not accidental regularities. They are expressions of consistency. They reflect the sustaining nature of creation. In biblical language, this sustaining action is continuous. The world is not described as wound up like a clock and abandoned. It is upheld. The regular rising of the sun, the cycles of growth, the persistence of physical order are described as ongoing faithfulness embedded into creation itself. This is why ancient people associated the stability of nature with trustworthiness. The predictability of the world was evidence that reality was not arbitrary. Today we might call these patterns constants and equations, but their existence still requires explanation. Mathematics is not made of atoms. Numbers are not physical objects. Yet mathematical truths describe the universe with uncanny precision. Why should abstract logic govern physical matter? The biblical answer is not technical. It is metaphysical. Reality reflects wisdom. The idea is not that the universe is divine, rather it is intelligible because it originates from intelligence. This is why, in biblical thought, wisdom literature often connects moral order with natural order. Both are seen as flowing from the same source. Just as gravity maintains structure in the physical world, moral law maintains structure in human life. To ancient readers, these were not separate categories. A chaotic universe would not produce stable meaning any more than it would produce stable matter, but we find both. We find a universe governed by dependable principles and human beings capable of recognizing them. This dual harmony is striking. The cosmos is understandable, and the human mind is able to understand it. The biblical worldview treats this not as a coincidence, but as correspondence between creation and the one who made it. This idea laid the groundwork for the very possibility of scientific exploration centuries later. If the world is ordered, it can be studied. If it is governed, it can be investigated. Many early thinkers pursued knowledge precisely because they believed nature was not random. They expected discovery because they expected consistency, and that expectation proved justified. From planetary motion to cellular structure, the deeper we look, the more we encounter layers of organization. Patterns inside patterns, systems within systems. The universe is not only ordered at the large scale, it is ordered at every scale we can observe. This does not eliminate mystery. In many ways, it deepens it, because the more structure we uncover, the more the central question grows louder. Why is there something instead of nothing? And why does that something follow rules? The ancient biblical vision answers with remarkable simplicity, because existence itself is not self-originating. It is called into being, structured and sustained. Therefore, nothing in it is truly without purpose, not the stars, not the laws that guide them, not even the human desire to ask why. After considering the structure of the universe, we arrive at something even more puzzling: the existence of human consciousness. Stars burn, galaxies rotate, planets form. All of these can be described through physical processes, but awareness is different. The ability to reflect, to ask questions, to seek meaning, to recognize beauty or justice does not behave like gravity or chemistry. It introduces a new dimension to the discussion. If the universe were entirely indifferent, why would it produce beings who care so deeply about purpose? Why would matter organize itself into minds capable of wondering about eternity? The biblical worldview does not treat this as an unexpected development. It places humanity within creation in a very specific role. In Genesis, human beings are described not merely as another life form, but as bearers of something unique. They are said to be made in the image of God. This phrase has been debated for centuries, but its implications are profound, even outside theological discussion. It suggests that human consciousness reflects something beyond biology. The text does not say humans are physically different from the rest of creation. It says they are relationally and morally aware. They can recognize truth. They can choose between right and wrong. They can create, name, cultivate, and govern. These capacities align strangely well with the structure of the universe itself. A rational cosmos is met by rational minds. A world of order is met by beings capable of perceiving order. This correspondence is difficult to explain if both emerged from unrelated accidents. Yet it fits naturally within the ancient biblical picture. Humanity is not an intrusion into an otherwise meaningless universe. Humanity is a participant within a meaningful one. This explains why human beings do not merely survive, they interpret. Across cultures and centuries, people have built laws, art, music, language, and systems of thought. They have searched for justice even when injustice appeared more practical. They have longed for permanence even while living in a temporary world. These impulses are not easily reduced to survival mechanisms. Many of them actually work against survival. Acts of sacrifice, for example, do not increase biological advantage, yet they are honored across civilizations. Why would a purely material process produce moral awareness that transcends self-interest? The biblical tradition answers that morality is not invented, it is discovered. Just as physical laws govern nature, moral laws govern human relationships. They are woven into reality itself. This is why biblical literature often links righteousness with harmony and corruption with disorder. Ethical breakdown is described not only as personal failure, but as a disruption of created balance. In this view, human life is not detached from the cosmos. It mirrors its structure. There is order in the heavens. There is meant to be order in the human heart. When that alignment exists, life flourishes. When it is ignored, chaos follows. This is not presented as abstract philosophy. It is portrayed as observable experience. Societies built on justice endure longer than those built on exploitation. Truth creates stability. Falsehood erodes trust. Faithfulness builds continuity across generations. The same principle that holds planetary orbits steady appears in another form within human relationships. The biblical worldview sees this as evidence that all reality shares a common foundation. The modern tendency is to separate facts from meaning, science from morality, matter from purpose. But ancient thought did not divide reality this way. To them, existence was unified. The laws governing stars and the laws governing human conduct were both expressions of an ordered creation. This does not mean ancient people understood astrophysics. It means they understood coherence. They believed the universe made sense because it was intended to make sense. And within that framework, human awareness becomes less mysterious. Consciousness is not a glitch in an otherwise mechanical system. It is a sign that creation includes beings capable of recognizing their place within it. Ecclesiastes reflects on this by saying that eternity has been set in the human heart. The phrase suggests that people possess an awareness that reaches beyond immediate experience. They sense that life is more than motion and consumption. They ask questions no other creatures ask. Where did we come from? Why are we here? What is right? What lasts? These questions do not arise from atoms alone. They arise from minds searching for alignment with reality. If the universe were truly accidental, such questions would be meaningless. Yet they persist in every culture, every era, every generation. The biblical view interprets this persistence as evidence that humans are not strangers in the cosmos. They belong to it in a deeper way. They are capable of knowing it because they were meant to live within it. And this brings us to a critical turning point. If the universe is ordered, if its laws are stable, if human consciousness reflects that order, then the idea that everything is accidental becomes harder to sustain. Not because science disproves it, but because existence itself points beyond randomness. The ancient writers were not trying to win arguments. They were describing what they believed reality already showed. A cosmos, that behaves with consistency, a humanity that longs for meaning, a creation that appears less like an explosion of chance and more like a sustained act. And if that is true, then the question is no longer whether the universe has purpose. The question becomes whether we are willing to see it. Modern humanity possesses instruments of extraordinary power. We can observe galaxies forming at unimaginable distances. We can measure radiation left over from the earliest observable moments of the universe. We can calculate the life cycle of stars and map structures stretching across billions of light years. In terms of measurement, no civilization has ever seen so much. And yet, despite this expansion of knowledge, the central question has not changed. Is the universe ultimately meaningless, or is it the expression of intention? Technology can describe processes, but it cannot assign purpose. Telescopes can show us how far light travels, but they cannot explain why reality exists in a form that can be known. The ancient biblical worldview never competed with observation. It addressed what observation alone cannot answer. It asked what kind of universe this is. Is it self-sustaining, or is it sustained? Throughout Scripture, creation is described not as something that merely began, but as something that continues because it is upheld. The regularity of nature is portrayed as an ongoing act of faithfulness embedded into existence. This perspective offers a striking way to interpret the stability that science depends on. The universe does not only have order, it keeps its order. Stars do not wander aimlessly. Physical constants do not fluctuate wildly. Mathematical relationships do not dissolve from one century to another. Reality is astonishingly reliable. The biblical writers saw that reliability not as an accident of physics, but as a reflection of something deeper. Creation remains coherent because it is not abandoned. In this sense, the ancient view does not oppose discovery. It gives discovery a foundation. If the universe is intentional, then investigation is not pointless. It becomes an exploration of something meaningful rather than an attempt to impose meaning where none exists. This helps explain why wonder has always accompanied knowledge. The more humanity learns, the more the universe appears structured rather than chaotic. Even uncertainty reveals patterns. Even complexity follows laws. Even the vastness of space operates within boundaries that can be described. Far from eliminating mystery, understanding has made the question of purpose more profound. Because the deeper we look, the less the universe resembles randomness. It resembles coherence on a scale beyond comprehension. The ancient biblical vision invites us to recover a way of seeing that predates modern divisions between science and faith. It calls us to recognize that explanation and meaning are not enemies. One describes the mechanisms, the other asks why those mechanisms exist at all. When Psalm 8 reflects on the heavens, it does not deny their magnitude. It marvels that such vastness and human life can coexist within the same creation. That sense of astonishment remains appropriate today. We are small in scale, yet capable of understanding structures that span the cosmos. We are finite, yet able to grasp mathematical truths that appear timeless. We inhabit a physical world, yet continually ask metaphysical questions. These realities suggest that the universe is not indifferent to our existence. It is structured in a way that allows beings like us to emerge, to observe, to reason, and to seek understanding. The biblical worldview would say this is not surprising. It is exactly what one would expect if creation were intended to be known. This does not force belief, it invites reflection. It asks us to consider whether the ancient claim might still illuminate the modern world, that nothing in the cosmos is truly accidental, that order is not an illusion, that existence is not self-explaining, and that the same reality which governs the motion of galaxies also grounds the search for meaning within the human heart. Standing beneath the night sky today is not so different from standing beneath it thousands of years ago. The stars remain, the questions remain. But perhaps the oldest insight still deserves attention. The universe is not silent, it is structured, it is sustained. And it may be telling us that existence itself is not the result of chance, but the expression of purpose waiting to be recognized. Before you leave, take a moment to reflect on what you've just heard. Do you believe the universe is guided by purpose, or do you see it differently? Write your thoughts in the comments. I would truly like to hear how you see these questions, because this conversation is far from over. And if this message made you think, don't stop here. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now. It continues this journey and explores another piece of this vast and meaningful reality. Keep seeking, keep questioning, keep looking up. I'll see you in the next video.